Kamusta kayo dyan, mga kameta? Yan. Boom! Marami tayong pag-usapan ulit. Kala natin slow weekend. Biglang may bago na naman pakulo itong mga kaibigan natin dyan. Ay. Actually, mga kameta, I was hoping yesterday medyo habol sa inyo dun sa ating meta and all. Kaso, anong oras tayo natapos? 10, something like that. May mga taping tayo sa TV among others. Of course, this is related to some of the projects we have. So, I had to do some very, very long interviews with people who really know what they're talking about, no? Mga people who work for a long time sa Armed Forces of the Philippines, people who are still working with the Armed Forces of the Philippines. So, marami kami napag-usapan ukol sa EDCA, ukol sa Philippine, US, China, dynamics and triangle, ukol sa pangailangan ng Pilipinas to step up to the game, you know what I'm saying? All of those things. Taiwan, pinag-usapan natin yan. Cagayan, Mamba, Cagayan, lahat yan, pinag-usapan natin yan. So, God willing, next month, medyo magkakaroon tayo ng updates dyan. I'll share more discussion about that. Now, those long discussions last night made me think even deeper about some of the serious challenges that the country is facing in the coming years or so. So sa isang banda, mga kameta, I would say that President Marcos Jr. perhaps is not getting as much appreciation as he should when it comes to grasping the nuances of the broader geopolitical landscape in the region. What do I mean by that? I think this pivoting towards the United States, it has its own risks. But in many ways, I think it has shaken up yung foundation ng ating relationship with China in ways that can actually benefit the Philippines if we play our cards well. I think many people did not see this coming. It gives an element of surprise. In the same way na marami na surprise dun sa Tatay Digong's pivot to China, I think many people are still surprised with the reverse pivot under Marcos Jr. And I think that has put China in a very tricky spot, and they're trying to figure out what's going on with the Philippines. Ako, my contention pa rin, mga kameta, is that the Philippines has not fully aligned with the United States, not yet, and that President Marcos Jr. still wants to reach out to China, but on better terms than Tatay Digong. Because the mistake of the former mayor president was that he approached it like a barangay geopolitics level, right? Pambarangay yung geopolitics niya, no? And, I mean, number one rule in international politics, you don't make all the concessions early on kung wala kang guarantee na may makukuha kang kapalit. Kaagad na-threaten yung US alliance, kaagad kinancel yung mga joint patrols, kaagad hindi implement ang EDCA, kaagad binabara yung sarili natin arbitration award. Wala ka ng leverage. Tuloy, nilaro lang siya. Diba? Tuloy, wala siyang nakuha ang concession sa China. Yan, amateur hour. When it comes to Marcos Jr., actually, he played it a little bit more pro. He came in talking like Tatay Digong. Oh, we're nice, golden era, golden age. In fact, may nakita akong interesting magazine itong Chinese ambassador na parang getting ready for new golden age of bilateral relationship dito sa isang magazine sa Philippines or whatever that is. And then, boom, here you go. Marcos Jr. doubling down dun sa alliance natin with the United States. And he did it quite in a subtle, gradual way. And one of the reasons I appreciated the discussion with some former officials and even also the current officials at AFP was that it made me realize that maybe it is correct to kind of give credit where credit is due, no? In terms of appreciation by our current leadership of the emerging and evolving geopolitical landscape. Now, there's a lot I can talk about, mga kameta, but to put it in simple ways, you can clearly see na parang medyo hirap na hirap yung China ngayon. Like, they're really trying to figure out what to do with the Philippines right now because this EDCA thing is moving very fast. Tapos kakatapos lang ng 2+2 meeting ng ating Foreign Secretary and Acting Defense Secretary at yung kanilang mga counterparts in the US. So mukhang pinaplanchado na yung hindi lang EDCA pero pinaplanchado na yung mga massive war games. May balikatan na tayo ngayon, the biggest war games we have ever had with any foreign power in recent history, if not ever. And then, of course, there are discussions about more military aid from the US, at least $100 million dun sa initial foreign military financing, at least another $100 million dun sa pre-designated 5 bases under EDCA. But if you want to develop those additional bases under EDCA na pinag-usapan, then that could be billion-dollar project. So there's so much going on, mga kametary. So much going on here. And it's quite fast. Now, so in that context, mukhang medyo nagsascramble yung kabila to respond. So kanina nagkalat na naman itong mga kaibigan natin dyan kung ano na naman ang sinasabi nila dito. So a while ago, we had a situation whereby, ayun nga yung sinasabi natin. Hindi ko alam saan natatrain na itong mga diplomats na ito. Ayusin nyo naman yung training niya. Ano ba naman yan? So kanina may sinabi na something like, wag na tayo makiano dyan sa EDCA na yan kasi baka mapahamak pa yung ating mga taong bayan dyan sa yung mga OFW sa Taiwan. So like, what are we trying, what is this person trying to do here? He's trying to say, you know what I'm saying? Okay, kasi ganito. So, kahapon lang nakita natin news mga kameta na nakapili na ng successor ang current president of Taiwan. Successor not in a dynastic way, but successor to run in the next elections coming next year, 2024. Si Tsai Ing-wen. So there's already a person elected for that. We'll go more into the details and the background of the one of the, of course, now the new top contender to be the next president of Taiwan. Mahalaga yan because if the next Taiwanese president is maingat, maayos, then walang excuse ang China to go for, you know what I'm saying, all in, diba? But kung medyo magulo yung next leader in Taiwan at medyo aggressive, provocative, pro-independence, openly and pushing for referendum, then medyo magkakaroon ng excuse ang China. But clearly, let's be very clear about the facts. Hindi po ang Taiwan ang nagte-threaten dito. Hindi po ang US ang nagte-threaten dito. Alright? The threat of invasion is not coming from US nor from Taiwan. Ito yung mga problema natin dun sa mga ibang sabog na analysis, yung mga slogan nila nangyari dyan. But, so ngayon nakikita natin itong mga kameta, medyo nagsa-struggle na itong China because they're really wondering how can they get itong EDCA plans ni Marcos reversed. Now obviously there's some pro-Beijing governors out there, at least one governor out there. We all know what we're talking about. There are supposedly progressive groups out there, but I wonder sometimes parang why are they so obsessed about criticizing what US did 150 years ago, which is true. I mean, of course, US did many things wrong in the Philippines among other places. But parang hindi ganun ka-emphasis doon sa anong kailangan natin gawin with the immediate threat we're facing right now in the West Philippine Sea and beyond every day. Alright? Medyo may false equivalence na naman nangyari dyan ng problematic. Tapos binablame pa ang US. I mean, again, ang US marami rin nagawang mali yan. No question about it. But perspective lang, balance lang tayo. We're not talking about Afghanistan or Iraq. We're talking about the Philippines, Ben-Hambrais, West Philippine Sea. Today, 2023, not 1969. Anyway, so kanina ito yung sinabi nung Chinese ambassador. Sabi niya, isipin natin yung welfare ng mga OFWs natin dyan sa Taiwan kasi kung magkakagulo, kawawa sila or something like that. Ang problema, sino ang magpasibo na yan? If magkakaroon ng gulo sa Taiwan, who's gonna invade Taiwan? Right? Parang weird Parang you would understand if Taiwanese come here and say, hey, maybe you wanna support us not to be invaded because because of your OFWs here. But the person representing a country who's threatening to invade Taiwan is telling us and medyo weird yan. Anyway, sabi niya, the Philippines is advised to unequivocally oppose Taiwan independence rather than stoking the fire by offering the US access to the military bases near Taiwan Strait. If you care genuinely about the 150,000 OFWs, parang weird to. Ang sinabi nitong ambassador nito, facts speak louder than words. Speaking of facts, arbitration award. Hello, UNCLOS. Obviously, the US intends to take advantage of new EDCA sites to interfere in the situation across... Wait lang. Accusing US of interference, kakasabi mo lang, di ba interference yan ang pinagsasabihan mo ang Pilipino what to do? To interfere in the situation across the Taiwan Strait to serve its geopolitical goals. Well, yes, the US goal is Taiwan not to be invaded and occupied, all right, by you know who, and advance its anti-China agenda at the expense of peace and development of the Philippines and region at large. Peace and development of the Speaking of peace and development of the Philippines, what on earth is happening just in the West Philippine Sea, right? Some try to find excuses for the new EDCA sites by citing the safety of the 150,000 OFWs in Taiwan. Okay, and now I see. So he's trying to reverse it. Well, China is the last country that wishes to see conflict over the strait because people on both sides are Chinese. That's reassuring to hear, in fairness to the ambassador. But we will not renounce the use of force. Okay, immediately biglang may threat of force. And we reserve the option of taking all necessary measures, meaning invading Taiwan. This is to guard against external interference and all separatist activities. Again, speaking of the separatist activities, sabi ko nga, ito yung si Mr. Lai, William Lai po ang piniling bagong Taiwanese top candidate for the ruling Democratic People's Party. Siya po yung current vice president, no? So let's see. I'm not gonna make prejudgments about this person, but knowing Tsai Ing-wen, knowing how practical, reasonable, and statesman-like Tsai Ing-wen is, I doubt Tsai Ing-wen will pick a successor who's gonna rock the boat too much in a dangerous direction. Because in fairness to Tsai Ing-wen, even if she comes from a supposedly pro-independence party, even if they're very strong people within the DPP party, yung mga troll na yan, talagang mapapansin talaga yung mga troll na to. Ano na, kamusta na si Robin Hood? Napasan na yung federal nyo? Isa pa to eh. Alam mo yung sa federalism, naku po, pag na-federal tayo, yung mga ibang governor na pro-China dyan, alam na this. Alright, balikan natin yan. No. So, in fairness to Tsai Ing-wen, even if there are many hardline elements in her party pushing for aggressive assertion of the country's independence in a legal sense, in fairness, she has not done that. Even if she has reached out to the United States, she has always tried to do it in a way that doesn't give China the complete pretext. Yes, nagkaroon ng gulo last year, but that was because of the decision of the Speaker House of the United States to come in. Although I cannot also blame Taiwan for welcoming them, because in a way that kind of gives them a sense of so-called comfort and support. No, but in fairness, there's nothing that you can find in major speeches by Tsai Ing-wen that can be construed as too aggressive, too rogue, too provocative. No, as much as possible, she tried to keep things on an even keel. So let's see what will happen with William Lai, her number 2 right now, and who could be potentially the next president of Taiwan. That's very important. But yun nga yung sinasabi ko, it is a weird situation right now when we are being advised by Beijing on our stance on Taiwan, and then there's like an implicit threat na makamathreaten. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, it's weird. So much for non-interference in our affairs. I mean, this is the thing with the fear-mongering thing. I mean, the fundamental thing about EDCA is about deterrence. No, you want to make sure that there's enough preparation by Philippines, by US, by Taiwan, by Japan, by Australia, all of these countries, so that magdadalawang isip yung gustong sumugod sa Taiwan. That's the whole point here. Nevertheless, mga kameta, I also do not 100% agree with President Marcos when he says yung mga EDCA sites na yan, walang offensive purpose yan. It's totally defensive or just for deterrence purposes. I'm not sure about that, both from a tactical and strategic standpoint. Because mga kameta, kung titignan nyo actually yung latest announcement, including by, so ito yung sinabi ni Pangulong Marcos Jr. So, see, I'm trying to be fair here. So I'm not saying all is fine and dandy. Actually, I'm a little bit also worried about where things are going, because there's always risk. There's always a risk. When you make a big move, even if it's a correct big move, there's still always a risk. Now, President Marcos Jr. has tried to downplay the situation and say, no, hindi gagamitin yung EDCA sites for offensive actions. But, actually, ito po yung clarification from the Armed Forces of the Philippines kanina lang. Alright? Okay, na-repost ng kaibigan natin si Ivan from who's teaching now in Singapore, National University of Singapore. So ito yung sinabi ng AFP spokesman, Colonel Medal Aguilar. Yung EDCA sites po, quote, will also be made available during the emergency situation for combined use of the US and AFP. Okay, let me go deeper into this kasi is this referring to Taiwan? But I mean, you could imagine that this could kind of be related to a Taiwan situation, right? 1 second. Ah, right. So, ang konteksto po, ito. So, konteksto po, ito yung kakatapos na 2+2 meeting between US and China. US and the Philippines, sorry. Mahalaga yan because dito, the United States also emphasized that the Mutual Defense Treaty clearly applies to the South China Sea. Kung sinugod yung ating aircrafts, ating vessels, including Coast Guard, yung ating mga personnel dyan sa Pag-asa, sa Ayungin, pag sinugod mga yan, pag may hostile power na nag-hurt sa kanila, automatically mag-apply Mutual Defense Treaty. So very clear po ang United States ngayon on its obligations in ways they never were under Obama all the way down to Nixon, right? So from Kissinger advice in the 1970s all the way to Obama wishy-washy US. But things have changed since Trump. And especially now under Biden, both Republicans and Democrats are very tough against China and they're more forthcoming on how much they want to support us. Now, so the context ngayon is, eto na, bubukas na yung mga EDCA. Anong gagawin natin next? Right? So the Philippines is looking at getting the most out of this alliance in terms of assistance, development, etc. But the other issue is how to make sure we don't get dragged into the whole Taiwan issue too much, overcommitment. Yun yung sinasabi natin dito, no? Yun po yung worry natin, na overcommitment, no? Especially because, how should I put it? We want to be solid enough in our alliances to make sure we are a helpful ally, but we don't want to be overzealously helpful to get into trouble, right? Or to close our options in dealing with China. It's a very difficult balancing act. So President Marcos Jr. is suggesting that the EDCA sites are mainly aimed at improving military interoperability, addressing potential humanitarian disasters, and perhaps respond to other types of security challenges. All right, ito yung sinabi niya, no? But, yun nga eh, others are saying hindi eh. Once andun na yung mga Amerikano, once na-develop na yung EDCA, and then God forbid kung may giyera nangyari, damay-damay na yan. So then the argument should be, yun nga eh, parang, if you say EDCA is for deterrence, then you have to accept there's a risk. But you cannot say there's no risk and it's also for deterrence. Do you get what I'm saying? You cannot have both at the same time. Kaya nga sinasabi ko, the president has to be forthcoming about this issue and say, yes, there is some risk, but we're not here to provoke China, but we're here to prepare and to deter China. But to say we're here to deter and not provoke, and at the same time say there's no risk, nothing offensive, etc., I'm not sure that kind of works. Because ito na nga, sabi mismo ng AFP, na pwede gamitin itong mga sites na yan for emergency situation. Let me just show you the exact quote, mga kameta, no? Para makita niyo yung pinag-usapan natin. Alright? Just read the exact quote on your own para you see what I'm saying. Kasi kailangan natin ng matinong pagsusuri sa issue na ito. Kasi malaki po yung malaking hakbang po ang nangyari ngayon pagdating sa ating strategic direction, yung ating foreign policy. So ito po, galing doon sa... So look at it. So sabi ni Pangulong Marcos, huwag kayong mag-alala, hindi gagamitin yan for offensive purposes, etc. Ano lang yan, pang training lang yan, HADR, etc. Pero hindi eh. Aminado naman ng AFP na pwede gamitin itong mga sites na yan in an event of emergency. So, kaya nga yung China, medyo worried na ngayon na parang wait lang, so mga Amerikano magkakaroon ng access all across the area in the north of the Philippines and close to Taiwan. Di baka mahirapan sila mamaya kung may gusto silang gagawin. Di ba? So, nagwo-worry din sila. This is tough mga kamera. This is tough. So, just read it on your own. You can see it there. Ito so ito yung sabi there will be a time that these facilities will be formally, completely turned over its ownership and used to the AFP, so we stand to benefit from the implementation of EDCA. But that's down the road. But in the meantime, the US will be able to use them and things go. Kaya nga it's a very tricky situation. I know the president doesn't want people to panic. At the same time, it's okay and it's necessary for the president to also talk about the necessity of deterrence. But to dismiss the possibility that these sites could be used for military confrontation with China in the event of invasion of Taiwan, to say that's not going to happen, I'm not sure about that because that's not consistent with the preamble of EDCA. The text of the EDCA, that's not consistent with the operational guidelines we're talking about. That's not consistent with the understanding that's emerging here. So kaya nga mga kameta, to be honest, I don't have a clear-cut stance on this yet because I still want to get more information before I make a stance. The best I can say for now is, aminin natin may risk factor, But that shouldn't cause us panic if we play our cards well. And when I say cards well is make sure the EDCA does not undermine our sovereignty, does not necessarily provoke China. It's also a linchpin for us getting the most advanced training and equipment at the best terms possible. But also, it has to be done, the cooperation with US and other allies will have to be in ways that does not provoke China but deter China from invading Taiwan. That will be a very hard balancing act, but it's doable. And it's not only doable, Marcos Jr. would argue that there's no choice. The only choice is to deter and to prepare, right? But if that's your argument, then you have to admit there's still a risk here, right? Kaya nga, let's see what's gonna happen on the other front, because Marcos Jr. has to handle diplomacy very well with China too. He has to reassure the Chinese that, hey, pare, ganyan lang talaga. Maganda rin kami, hindi kami mangmang dyan. We will do our part, pero wag kang mag-alala, hindi naman kami dito totally against you na gusto lang namin mag-alay sa kabila. We're still open to investments, we're still open to discussions, and we'll make sure blah, 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 blah. You know what I'm saying? It's not gonna be easy. It's not gonna be easy. But my argument is the genie is still not. Yung argument that the genie cannot be put back into or the genie is complete. Blah, all of the thing. I'm not sure. I think if we play our cards well, we still can make the most out of it, because Japan has even permanent U.S. bases. Australia has U.S. bases, right, etc. But that never prevented them from also doing their good diplomacy with Korea. South Korea is even a better example. South Korea has permanent U.S. bases, but that never stopped South Korea from developing a comprehensive strategic partnership with China and making sure they don't get too much into confrontation with China over North Korea, over Yellow Sea, over Coast Guard fishery issues, etc. So there is risk, but I don't think the risk should necessarily be enough for us to panic. So wag tayo magpapadala dun sa mga nagpapa-fear, yung mga nagpapatakot or yung mga nag-fearmonger sa atin. Whether ito yung isang tatay, whether ito yung isang kapatid, whether ito yung isang ambassador ni ganito. Wag tayo magpadala dyan. But at the same time, the president has to be forthcoming. There's a risk factor here, right? I'm also not 100% suddenly sure about a number of other things, because this is an operational issue. Kasi ganito rin yung some of the sites that have been open to China, malapit din na yan sa Benham Rise at Philippine Sea, di ba? So pwede rin silang maging helpful sa atin in terms of protecting Philippine Sea and Benham Rise, right? You can also make that argument. If we play our cards well, we can also reorient it in ways to help us protect our other flank, even a bigger flank, no, dun sa Western Pacific, sa Philippine Sea, sa Benham Rise. And then some of the sites that are provided to US, they're barely a base. There's barely anything there, right? So from a military standpoint, I'm not sure we really gave too much to them when it comes to some of these bases. The location is close to Taiwan, sure, but is it too close to Taiwan? That's another thing. So what I'm saying is there's a lot of room for diplomacy still here. There's a lot of room for adjustment here, but there should be also a lot of honesty about embedded risk factors here. And for that, kaya kailangan natin constantly mag-update dito sa nangyari sa EDCA. At huwag tayong magpadala either dun sa mga nag-fearmonger or yung mga nagsabi na, ay, wala lang yan. Hindi siya wala lang, guys. Malaking bagay ito. Pero is it big enough to say that we are now on an inevitable path to confrontation? I don't think so. No, I don't think so. So wag tayo complacent, wag rin tayo magpapanik. What we need to do is to encourage our leadership, our president, our leaders to do their best to make sure that that our upgraded alliances do not undermine our sovereignty, but also do not undermine our room for maneuver, strategic autonomy, right? It's we have to do a different mini lecture on strategic autonomy and things like that. That's a very important issue, because in this world, no one can be completely self-reliant unless you're super power, right? So inevitably, you're gonna have alliances here and there. But even if you have alliances, you have to make sure you still have room for maneuver and strategic autonomy. I don't think that's impossible for the Philippines, even in spite of what's happening with EDCA and all. And all the cloud of uncertainty also hanging around it, okay? Anyway, as you can see, talagang iniisip natin na mabuti yan mga kameta. And I'm talking to people from all across the whole gamut of people who know about different dimensions of this, and I'm trying to put them together, right? Kasi ayoko na hindi tayo prepared. Ayoko rin maging complacent tayo. Ayoko rin maging paranoid tayo. There's a proper balance to find there. But to find that proper balance, we have to have some deep thinking and proper discussion about this. Otherwise, hanggang ideological debates and partisan debates and blah 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 lang yan. Alright? Okay mga kameta. Napapansin nyo talaga komplikado itong issue na to. Anyway, later on, we'll have our latest episode of Nexus, God willing, with Leloy Claudio joining us from Berkeley. So we'll discuss more about Philippines, EDCA, US, what to do about Philippines in terms of democracy, in terms of building our strategic autonomy. So there are lots of things we're going to discuss later on with our good friend. Tulog pa sila ngayon, maaga pa sa San Francisco. So please, abangan later, before midnight, God willing, we'll have that kind of discussion. Alright, komplikado to. And I how should I put it? There are many terms kasi are there that I'll have to explain, but I cannot just throw it out there. Otherwise, hindi mo properly appreciate yan. But what I'm saying is that it's not an either-or situation. There's 1,000 shades of options that we can look at. And that's what we have to focus on. So, huwag kayong magpadala dun sa masasabi na either great to or horrible to. No, it's not. It's somewhere in the middle. So, that's what we have to discuss. Alright mga kameta, thank you very much again. Thank you sa lahat ng mga sumusuporta sa atin dito sa YouTube, dito sa Facebook. I really appreciate it. Let me check some of the comments out there just to make some response. But anyway, later on, I'll try to discuss this more with Leloy. God willing, hopefully, pagdating din sa break, university break later this year, we hope to also do in-studio. So, salamat sa lahat ng mga sumusuporta sa atin. Salamat sa lahat na nagpapadala ng suporta sa atin. I really appreciate it. Very, very kind of you. It means a lot to us, mga kameta. Nasaan na? Lalagay ito. Parang mahina internet natin. Anyway, let me check here. Dito sa YouTube rin, ang dami nagwawala-wala dito. Ayan na, nagbabardagulan. Hoy, umayos kayo dyan. Huwag na kayo magbardagulan dyan. Ayan. Ano sabi ni Neil Sant? Ayon kay Jay Batumbakal, nasa China's goal makontrol not just Taiwan, but the first... Yeah, I mean, yun nga eh. I'll come up with some map and discussions later. And again, thank you very much kay Ma'am Jocelyn Lumbero also for your support. Kay Ed and Lonan. Always, yung mga very, loyal supporters natin. Dapat may na tayo. Yeah, thank you so much sa lahat. Wala, nag-aaway-aaway na yung mga nandito. South Korea and Japan lang under nuclear threats from North Korea. Now, welcome to the club, Philippines. Ayan, ito na naman yung mga tatay mag-isip. Tatay style mag-isip. Ano naman yung mga... Saan niya kukuha yung mga, na yan? Mga tatay style thinking na yan? Alam mo naman, of course, saan yun. Ano ba? Ganito, guys. US ally ang Pilipinas at napakalapit natin sa Taiwan. Hindi tayo pwede magpa-neutral dyan. Talagang maapektuhan tayo dyan kung lang tayo. Kung lang tayo. That's why you rather proactively be part of preparation and hopefully deter it para wala nang problema. Alright? Kaya nga problema, there are lots of people who miss the right lesson from what happened in Ukraine. The lesson in Ukraine was that if Ukraine had strong alliances and support, Russia would have never invaded Ukraine. That's why Russia doesn't invade Baltic states na may border in with Russia because they became part of it. That's why Finland joined NATO, right? Kasi alam mo, kung may backup ka na, hindi ka susugurin ng basta-basta. Isip kasi. Anyway, let's have more discussions later on sa Nexus natin. Mas maganda yung back and forth din eh. Kasi I'm already talking, I'm really already arguing here. Parang weird na. Better there's someone else para makita nyo. Alright? So there are multiple... Sabi nga ni Fitzgerald, di ba? I mean, sign of intelligence is having multiple ideas and still, keeping it together and synthesizing it. It's a complex, multifaceted issue, right? Anyway, if you still want to see my primary stance, big picture stance, please check yung earlier vlog natin this week when I said any discussion of EDCA has to take in consideration 3 basic facts. First of all, the source of threat to Taiwan is not US. It's China. The source of threat to us in West Philippine Sea is not US, it's not Taiwan. You know what? Number two, left to ourselves, we have nowhere close to any kind of minimum deterrence capability. Alright? In-explain din natin yan sa The Chiefs sa TV5 the other day. There's no way we can do it on our own anytime soon. Ang layo natin. We don't even have a single squadron of advanced fighter jets. So if yung mga sariling sikap style, ano ba kayo? Are you okay? Diba? Kakainin tayo ng buhay niyan. Wala tayong leverage. Pangatlo, we tried diplomacy, total engagement, love, 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 tatay style. What did we get? Zero concessions sa West Philippine Sea. Zero big-ticket infrastructure projects. So clearly, that status quo was unsustainable. That's why we need something new. Whether what Marcos Jr. is doing right now, the speed by which he's doing it, and with all the operation details, is that 100% correct? I'm not sure about that. But is there logic to changing our tact? Perhaps, because status quo was not sustainable. Even si Tatay Digong towards the end was trying to make certain adjustments. Alright, may mga nagreklamo na mahina ng internet natin, and also, naghahang na ba? Okay, I'll check it here again ha. Anyway mga kameta, talk to you soon again. Habol natin tong discussion na to. Later ha, with paring Leloy. Join us. Thank you very much. God bless.